Sir, how are you?
Yeah, fine, fine.
Good morning, everyone. Yes. Yeah, good morning, all. Yes.
Yes.
Today, my partner, Mr. Sujan Gowda, is not in the call because of his home, some urgent requirement at home. Okay. So I welcome everybody to this. I think 2 years plus one. I think 25th month. In that 3 months we didn't do, but yeah. Thanks. Welcome everybody, and I today's agenda is here, and today's coordinators are Ravi Huddar from 1988 batch, my batch, Triple E, and Sanjeet Rao, 94 mechanical, will take us through. And welcome to the speakers as well.
Very good, very good.
Thanks.
Okay, go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Go ahead, Ravi and Sanjeet.
Sorry.
Sanjeet, Ravi, you
Oh,
have.
I'm so sorry. I was speaking on mute.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. It didn't warn me that I was speaking on mute.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sanjeet Rao. I'm from the 1994 MEC.
Good morning, Karkar here. Good morning.
Good morning, and I'm along with Ravi Huddar of 1986 batch. We are glad to host this event today. We'll start with a brief introduction to the topic. Of course, I don't directly connect to the topic because I work more in the software side, but Ravi has been in this industry, so he can give some insights. Before we go on to our esteemed speakers today, Mr. R.K. Shannai of 1986 batch and Mr. Ganesh Prabhu of 1990 batch. After that, we will have some Q&A followed by some of our alumni from the industry who will give us what they are doing in this field, followed by our Bangalore chapter president, Mr. Basavaraj Deodurg will give some updates. So that's the brief agenda. We can get started with the topic itself. I'll give a brief introduction from what I know, what I have understood of the topic, and then we'll proceed with the rest of the program. Sir, can you go to the next slide, please?
Thing is, are you going to share that, Sanjeet?
I can. You have it on your slide, otherwise I can share it.
Okay, you can share that. Okay, I didn't include the 3rd slide.
No problem.
Yeah. Everyone's to mute. Yeah.
Just 1 second. Is it visible?
Yes.
Full screen, I think, no?
Hey.
Yeah, I'm just.
Welcome to VoiceOver. VoiceOver speaks descriptions.
I'll just make it whole screen. Just a minute, please.
Good morning, Sanjit Rao. What happened? Pick up?
No, sir. You can see the slide?
Yeah, I can see your. I can see the slide.
Is it
Hear your
Yes,
voice.
yes.
I can see you also.
now it's in present?
It is good. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. So I think the slide's up. So let me briefly take you through Industry 4.0. I've taken this course from a talk from Bernard Marr, a thought leader in all this technology space. So let's go through the 4 industrial revolutions, if you want to call it.
You had a little louder. Come closer to your mic. Take your mic near your mouth.
Yeah, so the first, I think there is beeps.
Yeah, it is good now.
People joining, I think there are beeps coming through. But nonetheless, okay, the first industrial revolution started in around 1770, which is about over 250 years back, when the mechanization was done with the availability of things like steam power and water power. Right? When mills and all were started, where water mills and steam power was empowering some kind of mechanization to be done. The second industrial revolution was really when there was mass production with the advent of electricity about 150 years back in the 1850s, 1870s, when assembly line and all started getting organized, partly because main driver was that availability of electricity kind of changed a lot of the things that were happening in the industry. The third was it's about 50 years back when the first computers came in the industry, and a lot of automation happened then, particularly in all the service sectors where automation, like things like banking, travel and all of that, there was a whole lot of automation that was driven because of the advent of the computers. The fourth is what is expected now in terms of Industry 4.0, defined as cyber physical systems. Now, what is leading this is really the availability of, I would say, two things. One, really the internet, because it's connecting everything. So far, the ubiquitous nature of the internet was lacking. It was not available as much. And with the advent of newer technologies and speeds going up, with the 5G coming in, this is only going to increase. We constantly see elements of this happening today. All of the automation today is highly dependent on the availability of a good internet speed, right? And coupled with smart sensors and sensing devices, that's going to really change the landscape of the industry as a whole, and our lives too in a large way, which I think all of us have seen how it is changing our lives in the smallest of ways when we are using technology. For example, even things like a smart vacuum cleaner is available now. We know Alexa, we know Siri, all of these tools which are helping us control voice controlled equipment in the house. So we are all seeing automation coming in with connected systems into our day-to-day lives. We will learn more about it through what's happening in the industry itself through our speakers. Now, Industry 4.7, Industry 4.0 refers to the convergence of these kind of technologies: advanced robotics, manufacturing, augmented reality, simulations, cloud, internet, cybersecurity, and big data. One of the things that happens with when so many devices, billions and billions of devices are connected, is that it gives so much of data that has to be handled, and it would be residing with the connected systems on the cloud, where analytics could be run to find out patterns, to predict a lot of things. It is expected. I was seeing a talk by futurist Tony Seba, which says the industrialization, automation levels are going to go to such a high degree in the coming years in terms of the autonomous cars coming in, as well as the ability to sense how much parking is there in places, and people will stop owning cars. And it's expected to actually, one of the fallouts is going to be that real estate prices in America is going to fall big time because the number of parking spaces are going to come down. So that's the kind of impact that's going to be there with the technology that is going to be coming that's going to become popular in the coming days. So my particular involvement, I wanted to talk to you briefly about this, is that while when we were all in school, I would assume that we had not much of exposure to this. Today, there is a lot of emphasis in our academic career, space towards this. And towards that, I have been involved with bringing up a lab in my own school, which is actually sponsored by the importance of Industry 4.0 is so much that today the government has recognized it and is funding labs called the Atal Tinkering Labs in schools, both private and government schools, where these kind of technologies are coming in. So no longer do children have to wait till going into engineering to kind of get exposed to this kind of technology. Fully sensing the importance of this, the Atal Tinkering Lab is something that I've been involved in setting up in my school, where children up in class 9 and 10 are exposed to things like 3D printing, sensors, controllers, drones, and design thinking, computational thinking, ideation, and so forth. So that is the kind of impact that the technology is having, that even in the school curriculum today, we are going to be seeing so much of it being brought in. So that's briefly from me. I'll stop here. I'll let my co-host Ravi Huddar talk about his own experience more closer to the industry itself. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. Ravi Huddar, 88 batch electrical.
Good morning, Ravi.
Yeah, good morning. Now, Sanjitra has given brief, introduction about what is 4.0, starting from first revolution I am into this business, industrial automation, from the last 25 years. Okay, what he said is 1 and 2. The third revolution, what you call it started something in the 1970s. We are more into like controls, PLCs, majorly, and 4.0 now starts. See, background, we when we install machines, now individual machines which is capable later, okay, connecting to it. So majorly on we are into controls. I mean, we are also into, you see, elevator controls. Now lift also, you have now like controls when it stops, where it is stopped, which floor, what reason, things like that. Everything you can get into the information. That is how the revolution now. So in 4.0, we are like, we don't do total manufacturing process. Like we give controls, give data, we collect and give, okay, backend and front end, okay, people do the what is required, which I think Shana and all will discuss. So majorly I am into automation for the last 25 years. Now I think, okay, now speakers can take over.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi. I'll briefly introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker actually probably needs no introduction, but I'll just briefly introduce our first speaker, Mr. R.K. Shenoy, who is the member of the executive leadership at and senior vice president of mobility engineering at Bosch. In fact, if you pick up today's paper, the first thing in the morning I saw was in Times of India, Bosch is covered in the technology space. They're talking about mobility. There's an article about mobility. Mr. Shenoy is a 1986 ENC from KREC, as well as he's got done an executive summer forum at Carnegie Mellon University and general management program from IIM Bangalore. Welcome, Mr. Shenoy, and over to you.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction, and I'm happy to be on this platform. 1 second, let me just bring
your
up
video. We can't see you. Good morning. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. 1 second, I'm just switching on. Yeah, are you able to see now?
Yeah, I can. You got a beard also. Not shaved today for a week, 10 days. Thank you, Shenoy. Continue. You are again off the screen.
Mr. Shenoy, you're muted, I think. Can you unmute, please?
No, his image also disappeared.
No video.
Yeah, you're back. I can see your face, Shenoy.
No.
I can see your image. Speak out.
No, you have to.
Muted and video is not there. Both are not there.
Yeah. Mr. Shenoy, you need to unmute. Thank you.
Maybe internet issues there. Maybe internet issues there.
Then let's give it a half a minute.
It looks like that. It is internet issue only. Because he came on screen and disappeared means what? Internet on. You won't have tingled.
Joined in one more device and he's trying now.
Yes, he's back now.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, I got, it crashed. The system crashed.
But suddenly went on to other device, I think now. Okay, good.
Yeah, no problem. So I will just share my screen. So is the screen visible?
No, not yet.
I think I have a problem. Okay. Firefox cannot allow sharing. Where is this coming?
Okay.
Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Now it's coming.
Okay, good. Now you're able to see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to put it on show mode?
Yep.
Put on the slide mode.
Yeah, actually, I have a small issue.
You can reshare.
Yeah, maybe I'll reshare. Because I've come on the browser, so the problem is now is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not on full screen. Okay, perfect.
It is on full screen now.
Yes, yes, now it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, thanks everyone. Nice to be on this platform. I think as already introduced, I'm glad to talk on Industry 4.0. I think it's clearly a topic where a lot of work is happening, and especially I would like to give a short intro on how we see or how I see Industry 4.0, and then go on to what we're doing at Bosch with some examples so that we can connect with this topic very well. I think the intro part I'll skip, only to say that from 86 I passed out from electronics communication, and the idea was I enjoyed staying in engineering, and that's the reason why I've been with Bosch all these years, working in various domains. I started with industrial automation for first 4 years, and later on went into mobility. Now I'm connected with Industry 4.0 more from offering these solutions of products which go into it. Okay, before I get into Industry 4.0, I thought I'll start with how we see the mega trends that's happening, which has, of course, direct connect with the topic Industry 4.0. It's clear that most of the population have started living in urban spaces, almost 70% we believe by 2050. And that's why we see the cities becoming more and more crowded. The alarming part is, of course, the energy consumption worldwide, and we need even 30% more in next by 2035, which means whatever energy we are today generating, which is from fossil fuel and renewable, if we have to improve, of course, our living environment itself, air quality and all other topics, I think the challenge will be how to generate more energy at the same time, reduce dependency on fossil fuel and improve energy efficiency in most of our buildings, industry, and things like that. Connectivity is clear. I think all of us are used to it. The more than 50 billion items will be connected by 2030. This includes every small item in future. We were used to thinking that it's only large, electronics, large items getting connected, I think, but with Alexa and others coming up, we know that every switch, every window, every door, variables, everything will be connected. And when you look at same thing on industry, I will come to it later on. Every small item is getting connected so that it's possible not only to monitor them, but also take a lot of benefit out of it. And last but not least is AI, how it's impacting, because there is unlimited data available, unlimited computational power, and neural networks running on all of them. So the world is completely changing in future, and this is having a massive impact on every domain. Of course, I think there is also a mention about these autonomous cars, which will change. This is, of course, happens to be 60% of Bosch business, which I'm into. With more and more electronics coming into the car, we see that the electronics, of course, meanwhile costs more than 50% of the car value today. And in the high-end cars, there are almost 60 systems only to bring autonomous driving, which means 60 includes these cameras, radar, near-range, ultrasonics, and things like that. And this, the set of electronics that's needed to run complete autonomous is itself more than the car value now. I think it comes close to $50,000-$60,000 just for the subsystem that's needed to make it fully autonomous. That's the reason why it is not coming in at that pace, even though technologically it is already possible today. So a lot of work that's happening today worldwide, and including Bosch, is to see how we can reduce the cost of these systems so that we can effectively drive with accident-free driving and stress-free driving. Okay, let me get into the Industry 4.0. It is clear that over years we have seen this change. I mean, when we got into the industry, when I got into industrialization, we were in the phase 3, which is from mechanization, where it was based on steam and other powertrains, coming to electrification when power generation happened and a lot of machinery came into it, and more power was generated from electricity. But when digitization came, it's basically with respect to where we started using PLC and simple programming that was needed for each one of the machines. And that is a phase when I joined Bosch, for example. We were trying to develop microcontroller-based systems which can work on single entities, single machines, measuring precisely, controlling precisely, and then going forward. But obviously, this was only a starting point. Meanwhile, we are talking about Industry 4.0, otherwise called connected industry as well. And this has massive changes because we are talking about each and every machine being connected, each and every machine taking autonomous decisions as compared to before. And that is what I thought I'll talk to you today about. Okay, coming to basics, what does Industry 4.0 mean? We basically see it as 7 clusters of what's happening. It starts with distributed intelligence, which means each machine earlier was able to do repeatable work on its own once it is set and once it's programmed. Obviously, this is not the situation today. Today, we are talking about each machine having the ability to sense and use the intelligence, use the previous data of how things were. For example, when we tried out on certain machines based on the accelerometer that's put on a spindle, for example, we are able to see the signature of this and then decide whether it is having a wobble, whether there is going to be wear and tear, and how much life is there on the spindle, and if this has to be changed. This can be done in each and every machine now. And this distributed intelligence across all the machine, across the factory or industry, can then be used to optimize the throughput from these machines. And that comes to the second one, the secure value creation network. When you connect all the machines, and not only between machines in an industry, but also across industries, is where we are able to optimize, what is the throughput that is there. Obviously, there are bottlenecks in each machine, and then you can try to see, okay, what can you optimize in the data that's coming out of an individual machine, and if this can be improved and systems can be built around it, or between industry looking at logistics, etc., how we can secure that the overall value creation is improved. Of course, we do have massive issues currently, as you know, with the supply chain of electronics and components, etc. But this is, of course, going beyond the normal operations, and there we are not able to actually overcome the known problems and the known automation that can be done in Industry 4.0. It's assumed that, of course, the supply chain availability of components is not going to be a bottleneck, but you need to connect between various factories so that you can improve the throughput, and you can say which factory needs which component. I mean, we were used to earlier when we started after engineering to look at just-in-time, etc. Here we're talking about just-in-time, which is done automatically or autonomously. The third topic is digital lifecycle management. What I mean here is when we talk about digital twin, or ability to actually model a particular item, a machine or a item being manufactured itself. When you're talking about a machine, if you're able to model it, you can actually need not have the machine in front of you to look at how this can be, the life cycle of this can be improved. Once you have a digital twin, for example, when we were working on a product for mobility, we got a feedback from the field that some people were rejecting some of the vehicles, or in this particular case, it was a tractor actually. I don't know how many of you are aware, when somebody buys a tractor, typically an expert, farmer or whoever is buying a tractor, normally drives this to see the noise and sound and how it behaves, even though it's the same batch, same product we are going to buy. which means they're able to connect to the machine or a tractor and know whether it's performing well. They realize that 20-30% of tractors on a supply chain, I mean on a showroom, used to never get sold because the farmers felt that the noise from that particular tractor was not okay. And it was very difficult to solve or understand what the issue was. And what we did was then we tried to measure this through an app which was there on a mobile phone. Actually, this mobile phone is able to, as we know, it has microphone, and you can connect a vibration sensor. If you just put a magnetic vibration sensor onto a tractor and then you have the microphone, this is called a Sventa app from Bosch we had developed. You can actually take a signature of this tractor's sound that's coming out. And then from this sound, if you're able to compare across tractors and then feed in the data as to which tractor did the farmer reject, and then you're able to compare the sound between these tractors, then you can know that there is something wrong and then go deeper. We found that, of course, there were some challenges because Bosch delivers, for example, the injection equipment for these engines, that we need to modify some parameters on this engine controller. And then we are able to bring back the tractor. Of course, there are other changes that are needed on the tractor by the OEM also. With this, it was possible to solve this problem, and then they were able to ensure that before the tractor goes itself, they are able to ensure they fall into this acceptable signature limits of this sound and vibration. So for me, this is, of course, part of this, Industry 4.0, where we are not talking about in industry, but we are talking about a product which has gone out, but to feed back the system into the overall manufacturing line itself. Last is, of course, the fifth one is the open standards. Many of the systems we use or electronics like PLCs or any other controllers have their own communication protocols, whether you take a DC drive or whether it's a PLC. Meanwhile, I think we have more than 40 to 50 standards that are used to communicate between this equipment. Fortunately or unfortunately, of course, when finally you have an overall factory, if you need to connect, then you need to move more towards an open standard so that it's easy to connect without or seamlessly connect it. And for Industry 4.0, when we want to keep industry ready for it, to check whether it's ready for Industry 4.0 transformation, it is very important that the machines are following open standards that you can connect between them and collect a lot of data. And last but not least, what you see on top, it fast integration and flexible configuration, basically is how we are able to configure individual machines in a flexible manner, which means you are able to remove a particular equipment and then put another one in between, or you can connect them differently so that you can actually optimize overall throughput. This is a massive change to the thought process we used to have earlier, where we used to have transfer line or machines, rigidly connected between each other. And now we are talking about having more flexible configurations, and we are able to, quickly integrate when you have multiple machines coming. Center of all this, Industry 4.0, obviously, is the people, and they play a key role in ensuring that all these are seamlessly working. And that is the ethos we believe is important, because we are not talking about the science fiction movies where we talk about machines taking over the world and things like that, because finally, the final say is on human beings and how we want these machines to run.
Hello? Hello?
Is it just me or we can't hear him?
No, we can't hear. RK, we can't hear you.
I think the mic has gone. We can see the slide.
Yeah.
RK, we can't hear you.
The audio is not there.
I don't
We are
think
able to see the slide, but audio is not there.
What's happening?
I think he can't hear us either at this point. So
yeah.
it might be a good idea to just like message him, maybe.
Okay.
I think he has a system problem.
I think it's, oops. I think we should call him on his cell phone probably.
I am trying to reach out.
Hello, RK. Hola.
Are you trying to? Hello? Sanjit, are you trying to reach out to RK? Okay.
Hello, RK, we can't hear you.
I'm just calling him. Just a minute.
Yeah, that is better.
Hello.
In his another line, you can call him. Phone.
Yeah, he's
We are unable to hear him, right? Yeah.
Try stopping to share and just raise it once. Yeah, we can. Yeah.
He's on mute now.
Yeah. Now can you? You removed mute? Can't. Just okay. Just I can't hear you.
What is the issue, Sanjit?
I'm speaking to him, Udupa. Just a minute, please.
RK Shenoy?
Can you log out and log in? Maybe you just rejoin the conference. Yeah. Please. Sorry, everybody. He seems to have some problem. I just spoke to Mr. Shenoy. He will log out and log in again. His session is on, but for some reason the audio is not picking.
Okay.
Just give us a minute. He's going to log off and log in again.
Okay.
Mr. Shenoy, are you back?
Doesn't look like it.
There's a handful of people are joining back. You can hear the beeps. Yeah, he's joined back.
Are you able to hear now?
Yeah, we can hear you now, sir.
Okay. I'm really wondering
Share
why.
your screen and image.
Yeah.
Good.
We can restart. No problem.
Okay. I'll just share the screen.
Good.
Are you able to see now?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. Yeah, very sorry for that. I don't know what went wrong.
Can you go to
Now,
the slide?
Yeah. Now, are you able to see slide 6?
Yeah, we can see it. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just go a little bit behind. Basically, what I was trying to say was, I don't know where you could hear me last, but we are talking about more from the benefits point of view, starting from the digital supply chain, which I already mentioned, and convertible machines. On the power management, which is most important because of to reduce the overall, green gases and to save on cost on the power. We have various products which does this. For example, what I was mentioning was like a product like what we call as Phantom, which is non-intrusive, which is on the power line. And this product is able to look at the signature of the power line and understand whether the machine is behaving like it was when you installed, based on the current being consumed by individual motors, drives, whatever, heating and things like that on a given machine. And based on this, we are able to tell whether there is opportunity to save, as well as to find out faults that are coming up on individual motors and drives that are there in machines. The predictive maintenance is one fallout of that, where if it's a misbehavior, you can actually know from such things, as well as from vibration, for example. And adaptive testing and quality, what I was talking about, was related to using video. Meanwhile, when most of the inspection earlier used to be visual and people used to sit and do, but with the amount of video analytics that's available and identification of individual components and much more clarity and a lot of AI that can run on images, this is a big improvement that's been done. Meanwhile, we hardly use any manual inspection, for example, in factories. Most of the inspection is done through video analytics. And there, the best part is, of course, you can also compare over batches. And if there is a product that's gone into the field and you get a return complaint, you're able to go back and see in history from the image that was captured whether something was wrong actually when that was assembled and things like that. So these are a few of the benefits, obviously, and there are many more, which I'll of course try to skip today a little bit because of time. To show an example, this is how we believe now the factories will look like. Where, as you see the machines here, many of them are independently configurable, and there are robots put in between. Basically, we are talking about having robots within the manufacturing line and running on maintenance on its own, for example, replenishing the products through supply chain and energy management, like I mentioned already. And all this, of course, data then goes to the cloud. So across all the factories at Bosch, for example, we're able to actually tap the information from multiple locations. So actually, I can do benchmarking between plants to see whether one particular plant is much more better than the other, and then learn from them and implement. Of course, the whole thing runs on the assumption that they're all connected, and with the 5G coming up and high amount of data that can be derived, Bosch, for example, went ahead and registered for a pilot implementation of 5G in industrial application, which means each, unlike 4G, as we all know, is normally the communication is between a node and a central, tower. And then you have to connect back to the node if you have to collect information. Whereas in 5G, as you know, each node can communicate with multiple nodes directly. So it's more of a networked environment, and also a high amount of data, obviously. So these are what are going to be used in future. Now, this, of course, like I mentioned, goes beyond factory for the whole supply chain, either towards the supplier or the customer. And if we are able to track with RFID and many other methodologies of connectivity. And goods, for example, when taking, for example, the medicines, where you're supposed to organize, ensure that they are kept in a particular temperature, etc. There are temperature sensors put on each one of the containers to ensure that they're. And some of them, for example, we need to ensure whether there was a vibration or a fall. So these are also measured through, RFID tags with sensors, which means there are, active nodes which can use this information when the item is actually received at the customer, to see that they were properly handled throughout the supply chain. Now, when you talk about this value stream, of course, what you see is, typically bottom of this, top of the iceberg, which is basically connecting, using the information and using the intelligence. But obviously, Industry 4.0, we cannot implement unless we have the basic framework ready. And that is what we call below the iceberg, which means you need to have expertise, you need to have a modular platform architecture, we need to have standardized IT infrastructure which can enable it, and only then, and standardized interface between machines, like I mentioned, through open architecture. Only then it's possible, of course, to take benefit. So at Bosch, just to quote, we use Industry 4.0 both for our own plants, as well as actually this is a business at Bosch. We actually help many other companies to set up Industry 4.0 aspects. And that is where even in India, RBI 3.0, from RBI, that's Bosch Engineering, which I come from, we have one activity where there is a team supporting many industries. Of course, I don't want to do a marketing talk here, but just to say that it's part of the business as well. Meanwhile, it's not just helping us, but we are actually using it as a business. I'd like to run a short video. I hope it works on Zoom, just to show how the future of robots look like. This is a robot which is called APAS. Basically, as you know, it's not allowed for people and robots to work together in an environment. And robots are always put in a cage, sort of a cage, because there is a definite possibility that can be accident between people and robots. Whereas this cute little robot, which is meanwhile used, I'll try to run the video. It's self-explanatory. Looks like it's not working here.
I think generally you need to come out of screen show mode, probably to run a video. Isn't that right? I think so.
Now I came out. Are you able to see the screen where the video is there?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. But still you are on screen mode, I think, right? Show mode.
Yeah, we can see the screen, but that video is not running, Shanai.
The presentation is still on.
Okay.
Stop sharing the presentation and share.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll stop share here.
And one option is to share the entire screen rather than just a specific application like PPT. That way.
No, my problem is it's because on the Firefox somehow it's not allowing. Okay, are you able to see now?
Yeah, you can see it. Please go ahead.
I'm very sorry because on this particular notebook I didn't have the Zoom app. Are you able to see now?
Yes, we are seeing.
Volume is there? No audio.
I think before sharing, he has to click that audio share.
Okay, 1 second.
On the left bottom corner, there will be an audio. Share the audio.
Okay, I'll do that. Oh, yes. No microphone.
Not there.
Okay, I think it seems to have a problem. I will go ahead with normal. Without the audio, that's fine.
You can give an explanation, Shanai.
Yeah, now of course I would stop here because I think taken quite some time. And sorry for the audio and video challenges we had. Now I think we can use the time for conversations.
Thank you, Mr. Shanaik. Opportunities before we get into the Q&A, I think we can get our next speaker on board, Mr. Ganesh.
Sure.
Let me give a brief introduction. Ganesh Prabhu is 1990 mechanical from KREC, worked in Lincoln Helios till 2015, and now presently is general manager at Pepperell and Brooks. Welcome, Mr. Prabhu. Please take over.
Okay, thank you, Sanchit, and it's my pleasure to participate in this breakfast meeting. So,
good morning, Prabhu.
Yeah, good morning, good morning, good morning. 1 minute.
So Narayan Karkare is literally having breakfast. Huh?
It's visible now?
Yeah, it's visible. Please go ahead. You can probably do a full screen mode.
Yes.
I'll do that.
Ganesh, it's visible nicely. Yeah.
It's okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, myself, Ganesh Prabhu from 1980, KREC, now is NITK. I work in Pepperell and Fuchs as a general manager since 2005. Previously, I was in Grindwell Norton Lincoln Helios, which is pioneers in hydraulics and smart lubrication. So Industry 4.0, already this slide is shown by Sanchit. But here, one thing is the second, Industry 2 is actually pushed by Henry Ford, who started assembly line production, mass production, inspired by a slaughterhouse in Chicago, where pigs are hanging in conveyor, and each butcher was doing different activities. He inspired by that, and when electricity was available in plenty, and that was the start of Industry 2. Then 3 is the Industry 3.0 is with the automation, which Ravi Huddar already explained, where the memory program controls and computer started usage. And now last almost 10 years, we have a connected world. So data is king and queen, or whatever we call. So that is with the help of internet, high-speed internet. What is Industry 4.0? It is nothing but Industry 3.0 plus internet with the data crunching. That's all I can say. For that, we need the smart sensor to give the data back. Because earlier the sensor, what we use is only giving the output. Later on, it is our duty to process it. It will not take back the command back. So now the smart sensor is having intelligence, bidirectional communication. Then it will store the data, and it can parameter setting, all those things. So and it is helping in a troubleshooting and maintenance, all those things. So is a manufacturing plus internet with the data. That is called Industry 4.0. Means Industry 3.0 plus internet and data. Then smart sensor, it is a communication ready sensor technology, will allow the sensor data to be transferred effectively. So communication, the sensor is same sensor what we are using in industry 3.0, we are using in industry 4.0, but only thing is these sensors are communication ready to make it smarter or smart. So industry 4.0 is only the nomenclature. We should not think it is only in industry. It will be widely used in smart city administration and healthcare system also. So industry 4.0 is only the nomenclature, but it will be widely used outside industry also. So smart sensor in industry 4.0. So earlier sensor is only with the element called transducer, and it used to give one-way communication. That's the only two element, the earlier sensor which we are using in industry 3.0. But now in industry 4.0, the sensor is having, it can identify, it is having memory, it can diagnose, and it can interact back and forth. So that's a additional feature in the smart sensor. So you can see in the left side, the conventional installation what in industry 3.0. So each sensor is having digital in, out, analog, voltage, and other things. When you go to this industry 4.0, there's basically the IO-Link platform, what I'm going to discuss in the later slides. It is very simple. So all the sensors, IO-Link enabled sensors are connected to the master, and from there the communication is being made to each sensor as per the requirement. So it's a very, you can see the left side and right side the pictures. How easy in IO-Link platform, industry 4.0 platform. Then benefits of IO-Link. So it can, we can view the data remotely, and we can do a parameter setting remotely. Then if the instrument is faulty and we replace, we need not teach in that sensor fresh. It will take the earlier sensor setting by default when you connect it back to the IO-Link network or IoT network. Continuous communication, diagnostic at sensor level, each sensor can be diagnosed. So increased data availability from IO-Link, that's both process as well as device and service data. We can communicate, we can get it. So ability to keep history data. So it is easy when we sensor is replaced, we know what is the old sensor is having the data, and what are the, the parameter it is already set. Whenever the people have changed the data or the setting, everything will be copied to the new sensor when we replace it. So bidirectional serial, bidirectional digital point-to-point connectivity, and all those things, it is characteristic of this. So next is the LoRaWAN. I think few of you may be knowing it. It is long-range battery-operated devices connected regionally, nationally, and globally, based on the requirement. And it is works on our ETC, electronic toll gate, that bandwidth, that is 865. Sorry, there is a mistake. It is 865 to 867, not 856. 865, 867 in India, it is a license-free band. In this band, it will work. So it's a battery-operated devices in different field will be, which is enabled by the LoRaWAN chip, and which will help in getting this data in bidirectional, end-to-end, and with the security. So then it is the advantages of LoRaWAN. It is up to 15 kilometer. It can work. The signal can go. Even it can penetrate building wall. Even in mines, it can go down to the mine, coal mine, or any mines. So it is upcoming technology. And global availability and vendor independence of quick deployment of IoT. It is not a proprietorship technology. Any vendor can supply this. Interoperability and other things. Minimal power use. So sensor can function for years, 3, 4, 5 years, because of inbuilt heavy, strong batteries. Data transfer via radio. So therefore, no sensor cabling is required because it's a wireless technology. High security and integrity thanks to the authentication and end-to-end encryption. So in the present COVID pandemic situation, there are 2 case studies from Italy. Now you know that oxygen is an issue in India. So oxygen is being misused or overused, or it is leakages or whatever we call. So each oxygen cylinders are with the LoRaWAN enabled digital pressure gauge. So in a hospital, if there is a 50 cylinders, the hospital administration will know each cylinder, what is the oxygen is left, how can they control, monitor when they order back. So the LoRaWAN will help actually. So then next is the human body sensor temperature. Now, each building, when we go, the security is scanning the temperature, but he will write down by hand in a ledger. Now this LoRaWAN enabled, you can transfer the data with that each user directly to the backend server. So, and it will help both health workers as well as the administrator to see how many people came, what is the temperature profile. So this is the latest development. Then another thing is smart city administration. It is a live example in Barcelona. So it's around 5 years back. Our company has supplied this sensor, heavy duty ultrasonic sensor. So it is having 5 years long inbuilt battery. So what is happening is, in a city there is say example 5,000 bin. Earlier each bin the truck driver used to go and empty. So sometime most of the bins are 25% filled. So what now with this sensor, only 75% or 80% filled bin only will be attended, so that it will reduce the time and as well as the fuel cost and other things. So this is a very good example where the sensor technology or IoT or Industry 4.0 sensors, smart sensors are being used in smart cities. Then in Bangalore based, the steam turbine companies are successfully using TCS based IoT platform for different steam turbine sites to get 50 to 60 health parameter of the steam turbine minute by minute, so that both the manufacturer and end user will know how the turbine is working, when they want to replace the bearing, temperature gauge, whatever, so that they can do a preventive maintenance. They can order the spare based on the profiling of the data and other things. And BFW, that is is a very old machine tool company. They are having their own in-house M2 Next IoT platform. With that, they are remotely monitoring 15 to 20 critical health parameters of each machine they supply. And sitting in Bangalore, they can monitor the working of the machine and guide the customer what they have to correct and what are the spare parts they can order in advance, so that there is no breakdown maintenance. So thank you. Mr. Udupa, can you help me in this small video? Because hyperlink, will it work? Let me see. No, I don't know. So I want to. Okay.
Ganesh, directly run the video from YouTube. It's easy.
Okay. Let me see.
Don't embed it. Go to YouTube, put this link and share the screen.
Okay. 1 minute.
Or if you can put the link on the chat.
Okay. I'll do that.
Audio.
I'll do that. Hold on. Hold on.
Let us show you a real
What happened?
life example.
1 minute. Not getting copied. I don't know whether, yeah. Visible this?
Let us show you a real life example of how.
This is, is it visible?
Visible,
video?
yeah, visible.
Yeah.
Visible.
Of every company is the coffee machine. When this machine is not running smoothly, it leads to production downtimes, critical situations, and worst case, to irreversible errors. Joking aside, Cymate, a manufacturing data expert, uses the Pepperl & Fuchs ICE3 module for a smart IIoT solution and has equipped their coffee machines with it. So this machine is the perfect example for the direct connection to IT systems without the need of a PLC. Every employee has an RFID tag with his or her personal data and preferences. An online dashboard shows the live data of the machine. This ensures that the need for any action is detected instantly, so that production does not stand still. Do you already see the benefits for your production line? Thanks to Pepperl & Fuchs hardware and Cymate software, this solution is easy to integrate and ensures that all processes run smoothly at all times. This is a great IIoT solution, not only for the automation industry, but also for small companies.
Yeah, that's all from my side. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Ganesh.
Okay,
Very insightful, and thank you, Mr. Shannai. Both of you have taken us through a beautiful overview and details of how Industry 4.0 is going to change our lives in the coming days. We can open it up for a few question and answer now before I ask some of the alumni Industry 4.0. So we have a few minutes for question and answers. So the floor is open. Anybody can.
So Ganesh, this is Umanath Naik. So how do you foresee this chip shortage playing out for Industry 4? I mean, at least currently, I think your industry also must be experiencing this chip shortage.
Yeah, that is called semicon, not only chip, even basic, the raw material required for sensor also we are facing problem. And because we don't manufacture in India, we have a major manufacturing in Singapore and Indonesia and Vietnam. So even partly in Germany. So it's we have to cope up with this next 3 to 4 months or 5 months, provided that COVID situation is not going to escalate further in US and other places. So we have to live with this. We can't help it. I mean, overnight we cannot produce semicons left, right, and center. Everybody is sailing in the same boat, whether it's automotive manufacturer or mobile manufacturer or even sensor manufacturers. Even Bosch also, maybe. Mr.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and Bosch, of course, silicon is one issue, but meanwhile we are also challenged on PCBs.
Yes, everything.
So,
even cable. You don't get cable, PVC cables. Daily prices are changing. That is another major factor, and vendors are changing the price. That's also very forget about semicon, even cable, PVC cables.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Will there be any relation between blockchain and Industry 4.0?
Yeah, from traceability point of view, we are starting to use blockchain, especially when there are multiple components used, and to look at the source and also authentic data. But it is only in a pilot stage. It's not used extensively yet. For example, for battery, when you think about battery swapping for vehicles, it is important to know that when you swap a battery, what type of battery you're getting, what is the life remaining in it, and that it's a authentic one, etc. From traceability. So for that, blockchain is one good example where there is a pilot going on.
I believe it's being used in a lot of companies today from the supply chain issue. I think people from Oracle or others can add to that. Supply chain payments to suppliers.
Yeah, blockchain primarily is in places where there is authenticity to be, right? So all of these, whether it's supplier payment, documentation, and those kind of things, there's probably more use cases, right? I mean, like land records.
Yes, land records. Karnataka is planning to go for that.
Single source of truth. And I think that's where the battery case comes, where You want to know whether the battery is the battery that has been swapped. Somebody doesn't give you an older battery or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Any cement manufacturer in India, has he used Industry 4.0 in a big way?
As far as my knowledge, few plants started doing it, but still, convergence has to happen. In fact, because what is happening in Industry 4.0 in factories, each department is working in silos. In fact, it is not. If it's a greenfield project, yes, you can have a end-to-end, smart factory and other things. Now, brownfield project. Bringing different department on the same platform, and that's a challenge management is facing. I think next 4 or 5 years things may change. Part by part is happening, but not as a greenfield project where end to end is we're getting smart. Some factories are doing raw material incoming is IoT, and some people are doing the cement bags going out and warehouse management. That is on some kind of data capturing. So it's happening that's what my understanding, in a silos.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe we could check with Ajin India. The question was specific to cement. He's 94 batch, my batch. He's CEO of Digvijay Cements. Maybe we can connect to him.
Okay. I think he's because it's my understanding, because we supply a lot of sensors and we keep getting, based on that I'm telling that things may be different also, but we have to see.
Yeah, there was a pilot project we had, but I think it's not for cement. That was for steel, I think. More for conveyor belts. The conveyor belts, I'm assuming, since it's very long, and even in between, some of them are having fault. Then you need to communicate across and find out. So there was a pilot project which was being talked about, but I don't know whether it was finally implemented.
Hi, this is Bharat here. This question is for either Mr. Shenoy or Mr. Prabhu, Mr. Ganesh. Just wanted to know a few case studies of implementations in any segments which are done here in India.
No, you're talking Industry 4.0?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, this I told you, Bangalore, the steam turbine manufacturer, Triveni Engineering is my first company. They, with the help of TCS, they are monitoring, around different sites where they supply the turbines. And because in turbine, you must be knowing the, bearing temperature, then the vibration level, then the rotor speed, and all those around 50 to 60 parameters, so that is getting, evacuated, and with that data, the report is different. The reports are being made, and it will be shared to the user in the factory, and they know, yes, exactly, okay, this bearing is giving some trouble. It should be replaced in next preventive maintenance. Otherwise, once the steam turbine fails because of the bearing failure, I know that around 15 days you have to be shut down the plant, in fact, to make it up. So that's a good example. I know it's a hardcore mechanical industry using this IoT Industry 4.0 application. This started around 3 years back, in fact, 3-4 years back.
I have a question to either to RK or to Ganesh.
Yeah.
In a scale of 1 to 10, or let's say 1 to 100, where do you think is the penetration currently? What level are we today?
In India or
in India? In India, and you maybe make a comparison also to some of the developed places.
My understanding, because we supply the various sensors, warehouses like Flipkart, Amazon, Reliance Digital, and all, they are in the scale of somewhere around 7 or 8, I can say, because it's a greenfield project they started, and they have every freedom to start fresh. But other industries, steel somewhere around near about 5, I can say, 5 to 6 somewhere. I mean, that to department, not as a whole steel, integrated steel plant. Other places, I feel somewhere around 4, 3 to 4, some places even 2, It was 0, 2, 3 years back. Now it is slowly, the grading is increasing. In automotive, I think Mrs. Shanai must be having more knowledge and data.
Automotive, I would say, has increased quite a lot in the recent past. I would put it as 6 to 7. But compared to India, of course, in Europe, it's reached a very high maturity. Of course, we are working both in India plant of Bosch as well as in Germany. And there, if you take other than Bosch, of course, in Bosch, it's clear that since we're standardizing a lot of machines, our penetration is pretty good because it's a high volume production. There again, it depends on which one. If you take electronics, I would say even in India, it's almost 100% penetration because all machines are connected. There's all data taken. This inspection, what I mentioned, is it actually in the electronic industry where assembly of every component is photographed and you take a call whether the soldering is okay, whether there are any burrs or any problem. When it comes to mechanical manufacturing in the RBIN plants, I would say the critical components maturity is very high. Like I think already Ganesh said, it doesn't mean every department, every product line is reached high maturity. Where you're doing the new products like this common rail systems, I would say maturity is 7 or so. But if you take older pumps, this inline pumps, etc., it's only 2 or 3. At calibration area and setting, these are recorded and then the data is used. ABS, for example, it's almost 7 or 8. Every pump, every ABS unit manufactured, we measure every parameter, parameterize a pump before it goes out. And you can trace it back, that track and trace software which is used. If there is a failure in the market, we are able to look back which batch, what went wrong and why it happened, etc., etc. So that's why the PPMs have come down drastically, I mean the failure rates. When I look outside mobility, of course, we work with some of the companies like Texmo in Coimbatore, we had a project, and there is a tire manufacturer where we had done a project. These are projects where we delivered solutions to them more as an engineering company. And there, for example, some solutions are on the product. For example, if you take a tire, we are meanwhile having a project where the sensor is put on the tires on all vehicles, especially commercial vehicles. We take the
Got muted again.
Yeah, Bosch, I think he was telling Texmo because I was there in one of the seminar around 2016-17. There is one of the beautiful, industry 4.0 application in a water pump, submersible pump manufacturing. It's around 60 machines are converted into smart. It's a brownfield project. The old machine converted into made into smart individual, and each machine hooked up to the central server locally in a LAN. Then to and fro the data communication. Smart sensor has been installed in each machine, and Texmo management is very happy. 15 to 20% increase in productivity and rejection. I mean, the reduction in rejection rate. So I think people who are in Coimbatore can go and check in Texmo. It's a best industry 4.0 application.
Yeah, and they've done it quite some. Since 3-4 years, they're quite active on this. Yeah,
they're pretty good.
Are there sensors available which work in the vacuum space? And if it's a completely enclosed, getting the Wi-Fi signals, and we cannot, put the wire into because of leakages. So are there sensors which work in, complete vacuum space?
Vacuum.
But is it also metallic environment, full metallic, or is it not metallic?
It is SS304.
Oh, okay. And then I think we'll have to look at. Okay, and we have, if it is RF can come through, then you have sensors which are low power sensors. Which
LoRaWAN can be used.
Yes, LoRa can work, and the range is pretty okay.
Yes,
You need a receiver, and you can have a network of them so that you can collect the data.
Okay.
Maybe offline we can connect and discuss which environment what we want, because sensors Bosch is pretty active. We are number one in all the MEMS and many other sensors, so we can try to see what can fit in that environment.
I think there are some communication links which work on light called FSO. So in this kind of environments, that can also be looked upon.
Gentlemen, sorry to interrupt, but we are kind of running over time. So I'm conscious that we all have to probably get to our breakfast as well as our day jobs.
I was just answering to his question because he was looking for.
No problem, Sudhir. I fully understand. I'm just saying that we'll bring the question and answer to an end. If there's something else you wanted to add, it's fine. Otherwise, I just want to bring the Q&A session to an end.
Yeah, one thing, I just want to know, as we have been executing IoT projects in 5-6 years, I just want to know, do we have some sensor manufacturers from our alumni or some college mate? We would like to know and source some sensors from our own people at good price and good quality. That would be useful for our fraternity. So if you can share, if we have some manufacturer of sensors or maybe somebody working on software platforms in this area, because everyday evolutions are coming. So these two informations could be very useful for people who are already into IoT like us. So Dragster is doing a lot of work on IoT space, and I would request to share this information on sensor manufacturers or IoT platform developers. That would really help.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Sudhir. I'd like to thank both Mr. R.K. Shenoy and Mr. Ganesh Prabhu. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure, Sujit.
Yeah,
really.
Very insightful, very useful. Yeah, thank you. We have a few of our, let's go to the next agenda item. We have a few of our alumni who are in this space. So I would request them to come and give a brief. We're just about 2 minutes for each of you. I would request Ganesh and Kalmane, 1978 batch, to tell us what he's doing in this space.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning. I am Ganesh Kalmane from Electronics and Communication batch 1978.
Good morning, Ganesh.
Thanks for the opportunity here. Long back, I had attended this meeting and afterwards I lost contact. Basically, I run a company called Kalmane Tech Private Limited. We're into embedded developments, pretty much similar things to what our guest speakers talked about. Basically, we make embedded development boards, hardware design and firmware design for all kinds of technology development. Some of the projects which we have done are some of them for the Indian Air Force and for Indian Army. We have in fact one of our products running in Institute of Aerospace Medicine in Bangalore for physiological testing of the pilots. It is basically a multi-axial vibration simulator, which is an electronic control system for a hydraulic chair and makes it vibrate in 3 axes at different frequencies. These are all technology development projects which we have done. One of our latest success stories is that the technology we developed for handguns locking using fingerprint is now in production, and I'm happy to say that that is being supplied by our customer to Indian Army and Kashmir Police. That is to prevent misuse of the guns. If somebody steals the gun, not use it because it is protected with fingerprint signature. Currently, we have some products in manufacturing which are standard products like RS-232 isolators and converters and those kind of things. But one of the products to me is a voice announcement system, an automatic voice announcement system, which can be used for industrial automation. We are all aware that in industrial automation, there are a lot of alarm systems which generate, beeps and things like that. Whereas this automatic voice announcement system provides a voice announcement facility so that the alarm can be generated through voice. We have different models to address different applications, standalone and network connected and internet connected, those kind of things. I would be glad to share more information on this, and look forward to working with all of you people to find applications for this product. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ganeshan. I now request Mr. Rajshekhar Uchila, the 1984 batch, to give some insights of what he does.
I think I just shared a slide also with, yeah, so this is basically as a member of the International Society of Automation. So we are very much on the standard side. So the global standards today coming out, especially on cybersecurity, IEC 62243 is something that ISA is pushing extensively, and a lot of people in Bangalore are certified for this because of the internet connectivity. Another is, of course, on IIoT is the ISA 100 standard on wireless. So these are things that people who are going into these, especially the entrepreneurs, I would suggest that they are aware of these standards when they do implementation. The larger companies like a Bosch or a P&F or ABB are well aware of this. But the newer people should know that standard compliance is most important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rajshekhar. I now request Srinivas Koto of the 2000 batch. Mr. Srinivas? Well, he's not there probably. Mr. A.K. Manjunath of the 2003 batch, please.
Hi, Sanjay. Thanks for giving the opportunity. I am into industrial automation. I'm working as a technology specialist in Honeywell. I am into the field of IoT with we have a flagship project called Honeywell Forge, which is IoT enabled cloud-based application. I am also working on the predominantly in the area of cybersecurity, and also now off late we are entering into the renewables field. So I'm working on some of the control solutions for renewables. I am looking for experts in the renewables in NIT Kalyumani who can help us in understanding some of the use cases, and we can come up with some solutions for renewables as well as cybersecurity. I am planning to certify myself into CISSP and go in depth about industrial cybersecurity. If anyone can be helpful for me, can mentor, it will be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Manjunatha. Our last speaker is Mr. Rohan Prabhu, 2016 batch. Rohan, can you come on board, please?
Sure, yeah. So hey everyone, and thanks for this opportunity. I'm a recent graduate from NITK, finished up in 2016, currently wrapping up my PhD at Penn State. And my research is sort of at this intersection of design automation. So in addition to all the manufacturing automation that we're seeing, we also see that engineering design is constantly being automated. So we have like automated like AI tools, machine learning that can help us design better. And what my research is trying to see is how we can support designers to be creative using these automated techniques. And specifically, I'm focusing on design for additive manufacturing. So trying to see how, I'm sorry. So my current research is focused on additive manufacturing. So trying to see how additive manufacturing can be used as a method for more creative engineering design solutions, right from looking at design education to design tools and automation, all the way to creativity and design decision making. And something I'd like to look at is in future trying to see if there are opportunities to collaborate for use cases on trying to see how design for additive could be used in industrial settings, especially for industrial product development. So if there are if there's anybody looking for projects, especially in the additive manufacturing space, I'd be open to talking about it. And if you want to know more about my work, my website is on the slide. So feel free to reach out to me either by email or through other methods.
Thanks, Rohan. Thank you very much and all the very best. We now have the next agenda item. I request our Bangalore chapter president, Basavaraj Deodarg, to please give his updates.
Hi, good morning. Am I audible?
Yeah, please.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sanjit. I mean, you bring in a lot of calmness to the whole activity of a breakfast meeting. Okay, so thanks for holding this. And he has joined the team of Udupa, Appanakotri, Sujan, now things going to be much focused. With him, he's taking over some activity out here. Okay, so Bangalore chapter has been actively working on various activities. We did recently successfully we handled NITK Unlock Run, and there was a good participation. That might lead to another 10K run in, and most probably at the end of the year. Murali's been quite enthused about it, and we will take care from there onwards. And also Sanjit and Shashi, have put in a lot of effort along with Niranjan. They launched the website, which has been online, and request most of the people who have not been register into it. So that is the one thing which we need to have as many members as possible, so that the meaning of connecting, networking will be much more advantage to all of us. Okay. And another company that which we have formulated, the NITK Alumni Housing Development Company, has been working to close on the project which you have taken up. So all the approvals are in progress. CLU and conversion is in the state. And about a few weeks' time that we will give a kind of update on that, so that people could come down and visit the place. And also we have completed the planning in terms of layout planning. So other integration of the development services which will happen, which will be explained in the next meeting, that what we will conduct that. So pandemic is continuing to hit us, and all of us will continue to work from home. And we were thinking, for this breakfast meeting, that will slowly move to a kind of a personal meeting like what we did in the last year. So this April edition, and we were thinking, from another about few months that we will move on to a personal meeting. But it looks like, it's going to be difficult. So hopefully, all of you have been taking the vaccination, this first or second dose, and try to be safe, and will ensure once things have been in place, we will try to meet that. In the meanwhile, we will get connected. We had a plans to bring in Crescendo. Sanjit should tell us, because he is the one who initiated it. So until that, we have a in-person meeting, some kind of an activities that we should get on with it. So he's planning, hopefully, he will present it in coming months for us. So website, we're looking for some kind of presence of the people who have been in various fields to be, put their products, sponsor, and power website, so that we will have more activities happening out there. So this is what we have. Yeah, thanks so much. And this time meeting was much better in terms of giving more time to Shanai and Ganeshji. So it's a hardcore mechanical subject, which most of us, in this breakfast committee meeting, we're all mechanical, but we'll be doing various things for whatever reasons. So it was very interesting. So I'm sure, things as we go forward will be much more focused, much more better. Thank you so much. Yeah, all the best. Have a good day, all of you. Over to you, Sanjit.
Thank you, Madhuraj sir. So,
okay,
Udipa, we may need volunteers for the next one, is it? So,
yeah. So what is, thank you very much, Sanjit and Ravi, and the speakers, Mr. Shanai and Ganesh, and nice participation. We touched a number of 84 at one point, even though the registration were at 55. So good at the participation, global participation from Rohan Prabhu and Mr. James and Mr. Basu Lagadi from US, and I think real global meeting. And as I'm showing on the screen, you're able to see my screen, right? The slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a survey some time back, and we are going as per that. See, one is the clean tech water. Yeah, we had that in our earlier meet. And then it was Industry 4. And the next in the topic, I think even Sudhir Bakshi also mentioned. Industry 4, I think even Ganesh also showed in his slide, IIoT. something in industry. IoT is with the industry 4.0, and general IoT is the next topic. So it can be applicable to any field of engineering or service or anything. So I think next we will have this IoT, Internet of Things. It's a very vast subject. I think we encourage all the alumni globally to come forward and see that yeah, you get a slot here, either to present, speak, or coordinate or whatever it is. Okay, so that is.
Yeah, sir. You can request some coordinators from this group.
Yeah, we can, but yeah, we'll do it on the groups. So people, yeah. First, we will open up a page wherein you can put yourself if you are into IoT, and then we will identify the coordinators, speakers, and certain few more people to talk. Is that okay? So we are going as per your suggestion. Okay, so that's what. So going ahead, and thank you very much, and let us.
Thank you, Udupa and Sanjit.
Yeah. Now, thanks to Mr. both the coordinators of today's meet, Mr. Ravi Huddar and Sanjit. A big clap for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
3 cheers to Udupa and Sanjit.
Sanjit.
Yes,
Thanks.
Sanjit and Udupa, really.
Great. Sanjit and Ravi, you could finish on time. Great. Excellent. 1 minute past 9:30. Now we'll have our breakfast at our homes.
Oh, I had my breakfast. I thought it was a breakfast meeting.
Narayan Karkara had in between meeting.
I took it seriously, breakfast meeting.
Sir made us all a bit hungry by bringing some breakfast also.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we'll meet again next month, 19th May, that third Wednesday.
Yeah, fine. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.